Welcome to the What If Factor Living Beyond the Question Mark podcast with Dr. Williams, the show that inspires you to live a life without regrets, a life beyond the question mark. And now, let's listen to today's episode.
If you're anything like myself, you've had days where things are not going right, and you find yourself saying, I don't know how. You follow these four words with whatever you need to have happen in your life. You don't know how it's going to work out. You just know that it has to. As an educator, I taught my students that every problem has a solution. The distance between the problem and the solution starts with a series of questions, followed by some experimentation where you figure out what works and what does not. It requires that you frame the problem and begin moving towards solutions. You see, we become so consumed with the problem that we forget that our help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. We forget that his understandings transcend our own and that it's impossible to make a way by ourselves. But I want to focus your attention on Romans 8 and 28. In the New International Reader's Version, this verse reads as, We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. He appointed them to be saved in keeping with his purpose. There are three things I want to call to your attention about this verse. The first thing we must understand about this verse is that God is always working for our good. Now, I caution you in thinking that good is interpreted from your eyes. When God works for our good, know that it may not always be what we expect or understand, but aligns with his ultimate purpose. So, what is God's purpose? What does he desire for the believer? I believe that God's purpose was realized after the first sin. Before and after the first sin, he gave us free will. If it were not so, they would not have been able to make the choice to disobey God and eat the fruit from the tree. His purpose became reestablishing a relationship with humanity and bestowing grace and mercy through redemption. But through free will, he allows us to make choices that determine the journey towards our destination. The second thing we must understand about this verse is that there is a love clause. For things to work together for the good requires that you love him. That's right, it requires that you love him. Nothing else but that you love him. The way you love God is to reverence him and build a relationship with him through prayer and his word. It's about an alignment with his will. One thing I remember from elementary school is that you went from point A to point B in a line. You are aligned with the teacher everywhere you went. This allowed the teacher to give an account for you and ensure you arrived at the right destination. You see, God works in the same way in that you must align with him as you travel through the different points of life. It allows him to give an account for you and ensure you arrive at the place you were meant to. But notice, we keep coming back to purpose. Purpose is connected to a plan, and in that plan is a process that leads to your place of destiny. Jeremiah 29 and 11 gives a preview of God's purpose for all of us. In this verse, it says, For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Are you ready for this? Suffering, pain, and lack are not God's purpose in our lives. These forces exist because of sin, but we were redeemed by the blood and given power to overcome these obstacles if we desire. Enter free will again into the equation. The third thing we must understand about Romans 8:28 is that all things is not limited to the things we like. God has an infinite ability to work through both the good and the bad experiences in our lives. What this means is that God can redeem us and use anything we go through, good or bad, for our growth and the fulfillment of his divine purpose. Now, are you ready for this? Sometimes we forget we are called according to his purpose and not our own. That's right, I said it. Sometimes we forget we are called according to his purpose and not our own. I remember hearing people say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. His purpose is revealed and completed through us as vessels. This means we are designed to carry out his purpose. When we try to fulfill our own purpose, we create unintentional consequences that have a ripple effect through generations. One need only look at Sarah and her desire to help God fulfill the promise he made to Abraham. Understand that God does not need our help. He didn't need it when he formed the foundation of the world, and he doesn't need it to make good on his promises. He desires that we trust his word and love him with all our heart. So while you are trying to figure out how to make it, he's already made a way and did it before he said, "Let there be light." You keep saying, "I can't," but God is saying, "You can do all things through me." You keep saying, "I will fall," and God is saying, "I will uphold you." You keep saying, "It's too difficult," and God is saying, "Let me lighten your heavy load." You keep trying to make a way through your earthly limitations, but God is saying, "I am at the door knocking." When will you stop leaning towards your own understanding, start submitting to him, and allow him to make your path clear? You see, you tried it your way, and it keeps failing. It just keeps failing. But God is saying there is a better way. Let me show you. You are saying you're not strong enough, but God is saying my strength is made perfect in your weakness. You are saying you're alone, and God is saying I will never leave you nor forsake you. You are saying you are defeated, but God is saying in me you are more than a conqueror. You are saying you are unworthy, but God is saying in my eyes you are precious and honored. You are saying you're lost, and God is saying I'm the way, the truth, and the life. You're saying you're hopeless, but God is saying in me, you have eternal hope. Stop leaning to your own understanding. Stop saying, "I don't know how," because you know how, you just forget from time to time. Remember that you are created to fulfill God's purpose. Pursuing your own objectives can lead to enduring consequences. God doesn't require our assistance. Rather, he asks us to have faith in his word. The way you are seeking has already been made and established through him. Believe in the truth that you can accomplish everything through him and that he will support you and ease your burdens. Once we surrender to him, he clarifies our path.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of The What If Factor, Living Beyond the Question Mark podcast with Dr. Williams. If you would like more information about The What If Factor and where to purchase the book, please visit thewhatiffactor.com. Until next time, remember, in the grand tapestry of life, every thread, vibrant or dull, contributes to a masterpiece that captures the essence of our unique journey. As always, our prayer for each of you is that you prosper and be in good health.